Have tourists come back to Washington, D.C.? Which sites require tickets and reservations? And is this fall a good time to visit? I've got answers to all these questions and more in this video. But before we get into it, hello, my name is Rob. I'm a tour guide and the founder of Trip Hacks DC Tours. On this channel, I share my best tips, tricks, and hacks for visitors who want to explore Washington, D.C. And I recently started using a new YouTube feature that allows me to respond to your comments with YouTube Shorts. So if you have a question about an upcoming trip, leave a comment on this video or any video. And if I haven't answered that question yet, I'll add it to the queue for this fall. If you want to see all of the existing Q&A videos that I've done, I will leave a playlist in the description that you can check out. Let's start with a big picture question. Is this fall a good time to visit Washington, D.C.? I think the answer to this is yes. Absolutely. Washington, D.C. tourism is definitely back in 2023. And I'm gonna be honest, it's been a bit exhausting keeping up with it this summer. But the next several months are going to be a great opportunity to visit, each month for a different reason. August tends to have really low hotel rates compared to other months, because business travel is at a minimum and a lot of school districts go back in early or mid-August. September is a nice post-summer break. We still have pretty nice, warm, summery weather, but way less intense than in July. September also tends to have lighter crowds, with pretty much every school in the US back by now. October is my personal favorite month of the year in DC, weather-wise, and my favorite month of the year to lead tours. After a long, hot, humid summer, I really do like busting out that light jacket for morning tours. And November has, in my opinion, some of the best vibes of the year. We have crisp air, changing leaves, and relatively light crowds. I really dig November. Now, there is something really important we need to address when it comes to tourism this fall. Back in January, when the current Congress was being sworn in, I made a video and warned about a potential looming government shutdown coming this fall. The US federal government is currently funded through the end of the fiscal year, September 30th. But not after that. And Congress is on their yearly August recess and won't be back in session for about another month. So the clock is ticking, and there's a possibility if they don't pass an appropriations bill on time, we could have a federal government shutdown on October 1st. Or we might have one later in October, or in November, or December, or not at all. I'm not going to rehash all of the details, but I will say if you have a trip planned after October 1st, go down in the description and rewatch my video that I made last winter. There's a lot of important details in there. Another topic of great interest this year is 8th grade field trip season. Did it come back? The answer is yes. 8th grade field trip season came back with a vengeance. Peak field trip season is roughly mid-March through Independence Day. So we are in a bit of a pause right now, but field trip groups will be back in September once school is back in session. If you are coming in September, October, or November, I made an entire video with tips for navigating around field trip groups. So make sure to watch that in advance. Now, let's quickly talk about some Trip Hacks DC updates. Trip Hacks DC tours are now open for fall bookings. Private tours with me are open for booking through the end of November, including the week of Thanksgiving and the weekend after Thanksgiving. The Monumental Trivia Tour with Christine has been having a great season and will run through the end of October. If you are interested in either of these, please don't wait too long to make your bookings, because these tours have been selling out, and I hate for you to miss it because you waited too long. I have been putting a lot more effort into the Trip Hacks DC podcast this year, and I've published some really cool episodes lately that I'm pretty proud of. Like my interview with The Inclusive Traveler about accessible travel tips, or my interview with Jessica Sidman, food editor for Washingtonian Magazine, about food and restaurant updates this year. And I just published a celebratory 50th podcast episode. If you've never heard it before, head on over to triphacksdc.com/podcast to check it out. Now, there are some important things happening on the National Mall that you should know about. The Jefferson Memorial and Lincoln Memorial are both now under heavy construction. For both projects, they are rebuilding the underneath areas of these monuments. When they're finished, you'll be able to enjoy greatly improved exhibits, gift stores, restrooms, and most importantly, updated elevators. The good news is that the main chambers will stay open during the renovations. The not so good news is that your photos taken from the outside will look a little less optimal than before. A special event happening this summer is called Beyond Granite, which will feature exhibits from 6 artists to tell currently untold stories on the National Mall. I don't know too many details about this project yet, but do plan to do a live stream once it's open. So make sure you're subscribed to the Trip Hacks DC YouTube channel so you don't miss that. Beyond Granite will run for 1 month between August 18th and September 18th. Next, let's run through some important Smithsonian and museum updates. An important question for all visitors right now is, which museums and sites require free timed tickets? In August 2023, you will need free timed tickets for the Air and Space Museum on the National Mall, the African American History and Culture Museum, the Library of Congress, the U.S. Holocaust Museum. You also need tickets for the Washington Monument, the Capitol, Ford's Theater, and the National Zoo. Most of the other big sites don't require any kind of tickets, but if you do want to go to any of the places I just listed, make sure to get your tickets in advance. It's also important to know that the Library of Congress is currently only open 5 days per week. It's closed on Sunday and Monday. And despite the way that it was announced last year, the Air and Space Museum is still under heavy renovation. It was completely closed for several months in 2022. And then Smithsonian announced that in October, the museum would reopen. But the reality is that it really only half reopened. I've met quite a few travelers this year who said that the announcement did not make that clear to them, and they were kind of disappointed when they went. Disappointed is never a word I want to hear people use to describe their trips. The full reopening won't happen until 2025. Up at the National Zoo, I was really hoping not to have to include this in this video, but it's looking increasingly likely that our pandas are going to have to return to China this winter. I recorded a short with more details if you want to know about that. But in the meantime, if you're coming this fall, this might be your last chance. Speaking of the zoo, there's still plenty of other great things to see and do there, and if you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend watching my guide to visiting the National Zoo. Just go ahead and click or tap right over here to watch that one next. Enjoy your trip.